Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, regardless of where you are in the world. It's a beautiful day for us to learn about spirituality. And thank you for joining us in our Spiritist Talk series of this Saturday. Again, this series is promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation. And we have our presentations every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We're very pleased to have Joaquim Eleuterio. Nice to meet you, sir. Thank you very much for presenting us such an interesting lecture
Thank you very
today.
much for the invitation.
Excellent. And the
Great.
theme will be honor thy father and mother. A very important topic. It is a timeless topic.
Absolutely.
That, that's correct, sir. Before we begin, I'd like to make a few announcements. We have a new podcast like series. It's Psychology and Spirituality, and it's a bridge to a better life, and it's based on the works by Joanna De Angelis. There is a new episode every Friday. They are released at 7 p.m. Eastern. And basically, these weekly talks there, again, they are based on the works of Joanna De Angelis, and they offer pretty much a safe space for people to confront, compare, correlating, corresponding spirituality concepts from a psychological lens, bringing insights and actionable tips for real world advice to help you lead a better life. So please subscribe to the United States Spiritist Federation YouTube channel so you can get notifications of new episodes. In September, the United States Spiritist Federation will be hosting the 17th US Symposium on September 30th. It's going to be in Portland, Oregon this year, and it will focus on spiritual path to mental balance. It's going to be a full day program, and that will include talks, panels, Q&A sessions, a youth panel, and kids and youth activities. So make sure you save that date. And also, there is if on the screen you see there is a QR code. So if you want to help the U.S. Spiritist Federation produce publications and promote Spiritism to everyone, so make sure you scan the code on the screen for a donation. So now um, back to you, Joaquin, and again, welcome again, and very interesting. You're a very busy individual, so we appreciate you taking the time to be with us this morning with this particular lecture. So for those who do not know Joaquim Eleuterio, so he's been part of the Spiritist movement since his childhood. Currently, he's a member of the board of directors of NEECLAF, a Spiritist Center in Brussels, Belgium. And Joaquin graduated in economics from New York University. And he also has a master's degree in business administration and also in management from Boston University, and also has a master's in international relations from Université Libre de Bruxelles. And he is also an Army veteran. So, wow, this is quite impressive, sir. And now we would like to pretty much introduce your topic again. The topic being honor the father and your mother. So, without any further ado, please, Joaquin, please lead us through this very important discussion.
Thank you very much, Glaucio. I would like, first of all, to thank the United States Spiritist Federation for the invitation to make this talk today. As mentioned by Glaucio, it's a very important topic because most of us are adult children of parents. So we always have a relationship with some parent, whether he is in this world or not, whether he is incarnate or disincarnate. So we need from time to time to look at it and principally look at how Spiritism looks at the relationship that we should have with our parents. One of the things that surprised me, one of the things that I was, when I'm looking at the gospel according to Spiritism, there is this saying, honor thy father and mother so that you may live long on the earth that the Lord your God will give you. And that comes from the Ten Commandments, the Decalogue. And but one of the most important things that surprised me actually is that when we exercise our free will, we chose our parents. We chose our parents. So at some point in time, before coming on this earth, at least at this time or any other time when we incarnate, we choose our parents. We choose them with their qualities, with their defects. We choose our siblings. We choose our countries, the countries where we're going to be born, where we're going to live. These choices were made for love many, many times, for atonement, because there is a pending bill somewhere that has to be squared away. And sometimes because of hate as well, because you still have some hate within yourself, and you want maybe to try to solve it. And there is some revenge as well that may come along. So there is positive and negative motivations for you to come and learn the lesson, because every time we come into a world, a material world, we come to learn. We come to develop ourselves as spirits. And according to spiritual consultations, which means that before we incarnate, we normally are consulted. We don't have a right of veto, but we are consulted. And this is why we go along with the choices that are presented to us, because we want to incarnate, because we know that when we are here, we learn much faster. As spirits, we develop ourselves much faster. And so we have this desire to reincarnate. And also we take into account past incarnations, we're going to have with these parents, these proposed parents, past conflicts we may have with them, past resolutions, problems that are still pending, problems that have been resolved. Also, the families in which we have lived, be they material families in a particular material world like the earth, or a spiritual family where a group of spirits just go together, traveling along the path towards God. So they sometimes reincarnate separately, and the other ones follow them around. And this is one of the things that may decide why you need to reincarnate and where you're going to reincarnate. So we went along with the choice of our parents. And this is very important to take into account, because if we have a problem with our parents, if we have had a problem with our parents, then, okay, take this into account, that you are also part of the decision. You were accepted. You accepted them as proposed to you. As I said again, with all their qualities and all of their defects. But also what is important to remember is that because we have picked them, it doesn't mean that you go along with all of their decisions. They have their own program. They have their own missions and tasks that they have to follow. And you just try to be there to try to solve whatever problems you had with them. And it's very important sometimes to understand also the role, because sometimes, you're coming into a family to solve their problem and not they're solving yours. So you're coming in as the person who are going to move those two human beings towards a better situation, a better level of spirituality, for example. So we should accept our choices. If we have made the choice, because we have participated in the choice, we should accept those choices. We should respect the commitments that we made before we came into this world. We should not hide from them. We should not hide from them. Because also what is very important to remember is that we do not know who we were in previous incarnations. We may have been very nice people, but maybe we're also very bad people. Maybe we committed some very, very bad things. And it's important then to know that you don't know why, once you're incarnate, you don't know why you were there. And what you have done, as I said, you could have done some tremendous things, but also some very bad things. One of the important things sometimes is when a child is born, it arrives already with a spiritual state. And this spiritual state is a condition by which takes into account the previous life of this child, the temperament, the level of development, spiritual development. And whoever has more than one child will see that one is very, very different from the other one. So it is important to take that into account. What have you done in the previous incarnations? And we don't know. And one of the beautiful things about being an incarnate is that you have to go towards love, towards solution of conflicts in the absence of memories, good or bad. You may have some feelings sometimes, you may have some lucidity, but you don't know exactly, precisely. So, but our parents gave us the gift of life. This is the most important contribution that they have given us, the gift of life. They allowed us to accomplish whatever task we have to accomplish on this earth. They facing our trials, atoned for our errors. They gave us then opportunities to become better human beings and better spirits. Remember that we also, by accepting them, gave them also the opportunity to improve themselves. Whether they do it or not remains to be seen for each incarnation. But essentially, they gave us the opportunity to become better human beings and better spirits. Honor our parents is more than a duty. It's a commitment. It's a responsibility. It's a sacred contract, in fact. Even if their decisions to have you were based on instincts, on passion, on selfishness, let us pay with love for the gift of life we received. Let us pay with love for the gift of life, whether they are perfect or not. We owe our parents respect, kindness, submission, solicitude, help, material help, emotional help, spiritual help. So we are there to help them as well. It's not because we are children that we have no responsibility towards them. Many of us think that only parents have a responsibility towards us, but no, we have responsibility towards them as well. Now, and we should go beyond, when helping them, we should go beyond what is superfluous to us, and we should even share what is necessary. So we have a responsibility towards our parents, principally in old age, material, emotional, and spiritual. We should be guided by the law of charity and love for our neighbor. You cannot love your neighbor without loving your parents. It's impossible. Let us apply then this law to our parents. This is even more important if they are imperfect. Imperfect parents test our abilities to forgive and to love. Now, when you arrive at most of us, when we arrive at adolescence, they begin to question their parents. Many of us revolt against our parents. And we start to see all of the mistakes they have made, all the errors they have made, all of the wrong things that they do. But one thing is, for those of us who have become parents ourselves, all we have to do is ask our children, are we perfect? And most of the time, they probably will tell you that we are not perfect, that we're also full of defects, that we also made mistakes along their childhood. So keep that in mind. The only perfect parents sometimes is what we think we are, but in fact we are not. The gospel does not say love your neighbor if he's perfect, if he's kind, if he's generous, if he's just, if he loves you back, if he is unselfish, if he grants your requests. The gospel doesn't say that. Jesus said, love your neighbor as you would love yourself. Love your neighbor unconditionally. And this is one of the things that we came here to learn, how to love unconditionally. We came on this earth to increase our capacity to love. And one of the most important laboratories for that is your family, is the family. The children you have, the parents you have. The laboratory is there for you to use to increase that capacity to love. You should forgive your parents if they have made mistakes with sincerity. Do not pay evil with evil. Do not pay for evil with false goodness. Pay for evil with kindness. With kindness. Pay for evil with love. Resolve the issues while they're still here. And I say that because it is much more difficult when they are no longer here. Because when they are left, they're still present in your mind. They're still within you, in your memories, in your subconscious, in your unconscious. They're still there. And if you have to resolve the issue, you're going to have to go through maybe a medium, for example, or you have to go through prayer or dreams and so on. And we'll go more into detail later on. But try to resolve whatever issues you have with your parents while they're still here. It's much easier. All you have to do is talk. All you have to do is speak. All you have to do is make the first step. And pay them to the best of your ability. Remember, pay now, not later. Try to solve the problem with love. Pay with love now. Don't wait until later in life. Don't wait until they're gone. Don't wait until you're no longer able to communicate with them. A friend of mine, for example, had a very difficult relationship with his father. But when he wanted to speak to his father was diminished by Alzheimer's disease. So he could not really speak to him. He had no feedback, but he had one thing that he could do was to love this father in his present condition. He did, and this he did. He helped him a lot. But it's important that you want the other person also to feel that wave of love, of pardon, of understanding. This is very important for them. So don't wait until it's too late for you to pay with love whatever negative things you have received. And sometimes what you think is negative may not be so negative. So take into account that as well. Obviously, some conflicts will not be resolved in one lifetime. They may not be resolved in one lifetime. Maybe they will be resolved in the next opportunity, either in the spiritual world or in another incarnation. But try to resolve the conflict as best as you can, because if you don't resolve the conflict, then it's transferred to the spiritual world or it's transferred to another lesson in another incarnation. And it's very important to keep in mind that conflicts, problems, issues continue after death. The death of the parent I'm referring to here, it continues. It is in your mind. You wake up in the middle of the night and the problem is still there. Or you see somebody on the street that reminds you of a certain situation that you have with your parents. And once again, that whole problem will come to you. So conflicts continue after death. So try to solve it now. One other point is absent parents, they live in us. There are a lot of children whose most of the time is the father. The father makes them and then disappears. And the child carries that absent father or that absent parent throughout his life. So even if the parent is absent and you have never had any contact with him, you still have to honor him. You still have to pardon him. You still have to treat him as a neighbor, as someone who needs to be helped and needs to be loved. You don't have to hate him. You have to love him. And Spiritism says that we have the parents that we need for our spiritual and moral development. We got what we needed, and we have to deal with that. And how we deal with it will tell us if we have improved morally and spiritual or not. And I'm going to say, just like in school, repeat after me. Solve the issues, pay the debts, don't judge them, don't punish them, love them. I have some suggestions here how to deal with it. It's just suggestions. Each situation is different. Talk about the whole relationship, if you can, with your parent, if he's still alive. What didn't work? What worked? Most of the time, a few things worked, or most of the time, everything works. Talk about the bad times, the good times. And I had a friend of mine that one day he told me that he had a song that came out into his head. And the song is an American song, a jazz song from the 30s and 40s called Sweet Georgia Brown. And it's called ta-da-da, ta-ta-ta-ta, ta-ta, ta-da-da, ta-da-da, ta-ta-ta, ta-da-da, ta-da-da. And this song was on his head for days. And all of a sudden, he was very tired of it because it was like an obsession. And one day, he had a revelation. This song was a song in a situation. His father invited him, decided to go with him to a basketball match with the Harlem Globetrotters, which is a basketball team that is also a sort of a circus act. And the introduction to the act was Sweet Georgia Brown. And my friend said it was one of the few times in my childhood where I was happy next to my father. So that song was there within him. And when it came out, it brought a lot of love to his father, that his father was not just bad all the time. So keep that in mind. If your father or your mother or your parent decides to present excuses, you should accept them. My friend also, one day his father tried to make amends, but his father was not very good at that, very good at communications. So my friend said, well, I'm not going to accept this. And he walked away. So he lost an opportunity to make amends. He lost an opportunity to connect. So don't miss the opportunities. They exist. They are there. We just have to look at them. But, we have to be also realistic. Don't expect full resolutions of conflict. As I mentioned before, maybe not in a lifetime. Don't expect a compensation. Some parents cannot change. They don't want to change. And you have to accept them as they are, with all of their defects and all of their qualities. And also, some children, us, can't change. We have a problem when we are relating to our parents, because we tend, for example, to judge them very harshly sometimes. So we can't change. We don't understand why they behave the way they behave. And sometimes just a little bit of research will let you know that maybe, you should have helped them. Don't expect miracles, obviously, but try it anyway. All you have to do is, you have nothing to lose but your pride. Because if you present, for example, your excuses, or if you try to reach your parents and he rejects you, your situation hasn't changed. You didn't have a good relationship before, you don't have one now. So the situation has not changed. But if you allow that refusal, if you allow that action to enter into your heart and to enter into your psyche, then it bothers you. Then you're going to suffer maybe. So, but try it. You may lose only your pride, but that's not a problem. It's good to lose pride. Pride is not good for you. Vanity is not good for you. Communicate. Very, very important. Reach out in person if you can, in writing. For example, a friend of mine, his father passed away. So one day he was feeling very sad about the whole situation. So he wrote his father a letter. Looks, sounds a bit crazy, but in that letter he put all of the issues that he had with his father. And it helped him. It helped him. And he hoped that he helped his father as well as a spirit. So put it in writing. Through prayer, you can pray if they're no longer here. In dreams as well. Sometimes they can come to you in dreams. And that is a great opportunity for you to solve issues. In this world, in the next world, you can always communicate with them. And through mediumship, obviously. Because sometimes this is what happens. A spirit will come into a spiritist group, and it may be somebody related to you, your parent or your mother, and so on. And this is a point that is very important to me. The bicycle trip. I had a dream once, maybe 15 years ago, where I was on a bicycle and bicycling through an unknown country. And I looked behind me, and there was my father behind me, also on a bicycle. And we bicycled a little bit together, and then we went into a pub. And my father was a teetotaler. He never drank anything. But we went in, and there was a very English pub, and we sat on a table, and there was a bartender. The bartender was just there looking with some kind of emissary or something. He was there. And we talked for maybe a few minutes, several minutes, 1 hour, I don't know, in the dream. We talked a lot. And all of a sudden I said, Dad, I have to go. And we left together on a bicycle. He was on his bicycle and me on my bicycle. And we went a few more meters. And then he said, my son, I have to go that way. And I said, oh, Dad, I have to go straight ahead. And that was it. I said, goodbye, Dad. And he, goodbye. And that was the way I pardoned my father. I did it in a dream. And after that, I had no issues with him anymore. None whatsoever. And all of the things that were bothering me up to that point magically disappeared in that dream. So a dream can help you as well. Seize the chances to heal wounds. Let the burdens, lift the burden from your shoulders, because whatever negativity you have, it's on your shoulders. So finding a solution will lift that burden from you. The name of the game when you come on an incarnation, you arrive with a certain baggage, lots of baggage, and you leave with less baggage. So if you can, whatever baggage you can leave behind, the better. And forgiveness can happen at any time, at any age. But forgiveness happens on God's time, in this incarnation, in future incarnations. So if you don't forgive on this incarnation, well, you're going to have to forgive later on. As simple as that. Take the first step. Present your excuses, even if you think that you have done nothing wrong. But remember, you don't know what you did in the past. Maybe you were assigned to one of your worst enemies. Maybe you were assigned as a son or a daughter to someone that you hurt in the past. So present whatever excuses you have to present. Be humble, be patient, analyze the conflicts. Sorry. Look at mitigating factors. Sometimes you have to know the history of your parents, what happened to them, how they were brought up, what kind of childhood they had. For example, my father was in the army all of his life. He fought in the revolution, the constitutional revolution of 1932 in Brazil, but he also fought in World War II in northern Italy in winter, in a very tough battle in the mountains. So you have tropical people fighting in the winter in northern Italy. So extremely difficult situation. So it explained a lot of the things, that this man was. Ask questions without anger. Some questions will have no answers. Some secrets will remain hidden because the person doesn't want to show them to you. He's not ready yet. So don't insist. If he doesn't want to say, accept it. Or she doesn't want to say it, accept it. Answer without violence. Without violence. Explain with love. Explain with love. Explain your position. Look for a solution. Don't try to punish. Don't try to get a revenge. But don't be afraid of showing your love. Sometimes, when we have been, for example, abused, we feel embarrassed because we love that person who have abused us. Don't be ashamed of loving or forgiving. Loving and forgiving is a sign of power, is a sign of force. So don't be ashamed of it. Don't be afraid of the questions. Don't be afraid of the answers. Readjust your spiritual structure. Sometimes when you have a couple, for example, a father and a mother, or a father and father, or a mother and mother, they have their own dynamics. And sometimes, the person who is the bad person is not necessarily so bad as the other one makes it to be, because there is a conflict, for example, between them. So make sure that you readjust also your place in it. Release any negative emotions, but leave the judgments to Jesus and God. God did not ask you to be a judge, neither of your parents or anybody else. You're not a judge. You're not here to judge anyone. Children, and I'm going to talk a little bit about children now. For those who have it, you have to stop vicious cycles. It's not because you were abused, it's not because you suffer that you have to make your children suffer. Stop the cycles of violence, of abuse, of abandonment. Not because you were abandoned that you're going to abandon. Do not take revenge on your children. They have their own challenges. You are there to help them. You are there to love them. Learn from your own suffering. What you didn't like, your children won't like either. I can guarantee you that. If your parents were violent towards you, your children are not going to like that you're violent towards them. So try to stop the cycles, the vicious cycles, and be guided by love. If you're guided by love, the probability of making mistakes is much smaller. Be guided by love for your parents and for your children. And reflect, how would you like to be treated when you are old? How would you like to be treated by your children, for example? With inflexibility? with violence, with a spirit of vengeance, or with understanding, or with love, or with empathy. This is what your parents are looking for when you're talking to them, in fact. They want you to be understanding. They want you to love them. They want you to have empathy. Seek the truth. Try to understand. Don't assign blame, as I said before. Look at your inheritance, good, bad. It could help you discover who you are. Sometimes looking at that, you can understand who you are. Look at the light and darkness. We all have many dimensions, Very few people are all bad or all good. They all have different dimensions. Maybe that saintly mother that you had is not so saintly. Maybe that terrible father is not so terrible. So try to find a balance by looking at the whole person. Review all roles, but do not forget your own as well, because sometimes we are very difficult as adolescents, for example. Review your role. Do you provoke your parents if you have a relationship with them as an adult? Do you torture them? Do you disrespect them? And as I said here, there are very few saints and there are very few demons. In conclusion, forgiveness comes from dialogue, from understanding, from empathy, above all from love. And try, if you can, in relation to your parents, to try to develop a forgiveness strategy, emotional, historical, and physical. Emotional, how can I arrive at forgiving them? What can I know about their lives that will help me? And physically as well, what can I do physically that would show that I'm forgiving them? And spiritually, how can I support them spiritually so that I can forgive them? So respect so that you can be respected. Hear so that you can be heard. Understand so that you could be understood in relation to your children. Forgive so that you could be forgiven. So you forgive your parents, and later if you commit errors, your children will forgive you. Love so that you can be loved. You love your parents, maybe you'll be loved by your children as well. Honor so that you may be honored. Look for reconciliation. That's very important. There's no point in going on without reconciliation. Don't worry about making this first step. Try to do it. It will help you a lot. And finally, remember that scars are the memories of wounds that have healed but can still be painful. So if you have had a problem with your parents, you have scars on your body. You have scars if you were physically abused, for example. You have scars on your psyche because you were verbally abused or morally abused. Your perispirit may be scarred, and sometimes it is painful. But we have to learn how to live with it. We have to go beyond that and go towards light, go towards love, and go towards the light. And this is what I have to do. And I pay here tribute to my mother and father very quickly. And I was very happy to have them. And I always thank them every day for the opportunity they gave me. I'd like to leave you only with a few questions or themes that if you would like to consider. Does forgiveness justify or prove past acts? Are you a perfect child or parent? Did you make the same mistakes as your parents when in relation to your children? Can we forget what was done to us by our parents? Do your parents have to accept you before you accept them? Or forgive you before you forgive them? So these are the issues that I had, the presentation that I had, and I thank very much for the opportunity to be here. And back to Glaucio.
Joaquim, thank you very much. It was very insightful. I was, as you were going through your lecture, I was thinking about my parents and my role as a parent as well. So it was, I appreciate it. Um, do you want us to go over your questions so you can comment on your own questions, or are those questions?
No, you can. I just put it there so that people, if they want to be inspired by them, they can put whatever questions they want. If there are no questions, then I can speak about those.
I really like those questions. Would it be okay for you to
Yeah,
spend
sure.
months, because I really like those questions. They're very insightful.
Okay. Can you put them up somewhere there so I can look at them again?
They're coming right back.
Okay, I got it here. I got it. Okay. Okay.
So the first one, yeah, about does forgiveness justify or approve of past acts?
Yes. Well, it does not, in my view. It does not. Absolutely not. It doesn't mean it does. It sometimes when you study a person's history, what they have done, you learn certain things. You learn about some mitigating factors, but it explains but does not justify. So if you forgive, it doesn't justify what they did. They made a mistake, and the mistake remains a mistake. But as Jesus did with Mary Magdalene, you can condemn the mistake, but you can still love the person that made the mistake. So this is what I'm saying here. It doesn't justify, it doesn't approve what happened, but you can still love the person, you can still forgive them. And one of the most important things that sometimes we are caught in is that when something bad was done to us by a parent, we still want to love them. We still want to love them. We still like to, some of us are still looking for approval, looking for that love. And it's very important then to realize that whatever they did is their responsibility. They did it, but you are just forgiving them for that and loving them for, even though they made mistakes, even though they were imperfect.
That was quite interesting. And the next question here for reflection: are you a perfect child or parent?
Well, well, as I tried to mention before, the only perfect parent, normally only parents think they're perfect, and children also sometimes they think they're perfect. Principally in adolescence, they think that everything they do is correct, but it's not necessarily so. And sometimes, you can be, for example, the source of a lot of conflicts for your parents. You can be the source of a lot of hurt for your parents. I have had in my consultations within the Spiritist movement, I have spoken with people that have had a very adversarial relationship with their children, where the child would be very violent towards them, and so on and so forth. Now, that is the dynamic that exists within a situation where you have to come to a solution, whatever issue existed between these two spirits, through love. So perfection doesn't exist. Perfection exists only when we get near to God. So the idea here is most people, and perfection here, I think, can do no wrong. Well, we did a lot of wrong things when we were children, and we probably make plenty of mistakes as parents. But the name of the game as a parent is to make mistakes, but not make too many, so that you can salvage the relationship. Mistakes everybody can make.
Oh, interesting. And the next question that you posed for us for food for thought, right? Did you make the same mistakes as your parents?
Yeah, sometimes we inherit their mistakes, for sure. For example, I know a guy who was raised in a very strict household where it was the law of the whip, essentially. the law of the whip. And so when he decided to have a family, he decided to do the same because it's the only thing he knew at that time. And this is one of the things that I mentioned in my presentation. You have to break the vicious cycles. You have to break them so that the cycle of violence does not go on. The cycle of mistakes does not go on. So you have the privilege and you have the opportunity to break the cycle, and you should break the cycle. So if you think that your parents made mistakes, don't make the mistakes that they have made. But some people, for example, do it all the time. Because sometimes also when they suffer some trauma, they put that trauma within their unconscious, for example. And one day, for some reason, the unconscious comes alive, and the child is there, so he's going to be acting it out on the child. So make sure that you don't commit the same mistakes if you can.
And I guess along the same lines, right? Can we forget what was done to us?
Well, I'm one of those who thinks that you cannot forget anything that has been done to you. You cannot do it. You can put it in a drawer and close the drawer with with a key. You can put it in your unconscious, but it's going to stay there doing you some harm, in fact. So you cannot forget. You cannot forget. I've seen situations where people, you had 3 or 4 people, they saw the same scene, and the person who suffered the trauma didn't remember the trauma, but the other witnesses remember the trauma. They remember the trauma, but the person forgot about it. So we don't forget. We put it somewhere. Sometimes on the conscious memory or in the unconscious memory. If it is in the unconscious memory, it's going to come out somehow by anger, for example, by lack of patience, by violence, by whatever. But I don't believe you can forget. What you can do is go beyond it and try to go beyond that, and then go towards love, go towards a resolution of whatever problem you have had. And sometimes you have to liberate from your unconscious the negative feelings that are there. You have to do that so that they come to your conscious mind, and then you can deal with them.
How interesting. And the last but not least, right? Do your parents have to accept you before you accept them?
No. You have to accept them as they are, your parents. The idea that they gave you the gift of life and you have a duty of honor is there all the time. As I said, the relationships are complicated, and I may, and it may not apply to, obviously doesn't apply to everyone, but you have to have an open mind, accept them as they are, not like you would like them to be. Accept them as they are and deal with them as they are, with their qualities and with their defects, and try to live with that. Try, obviously, to, if you can, to, by dialogue, by love, to influence the way they behave or the way they perceive the world. But it's very important that you accept them as they are. And sometimes parents will not accept you. They would not accept certain things, certain characteristics that you have, certain choices that you have made in your life. Maybe a wife that you have chosen, or a profession that you have chosen. One friend of mine said that in her family, you were either an engineer, a doctor, or a failure. There were no other choices. So this is something that you have to live with. And sometimes, you give it time, and sometimes the parent will learn and learn to accept the way you are. But live your life the way you should live, the way you feel like you should live, but communicate with your parents and try to find some common ground.
Those questions were great. They were very insightful. Thank you for sharing those with the rest of us.
The pleasure
We
was
have
mine.
additional questions. Yeah, thank you, sir. We have additional questions for you.
Okay.
Why does the Old Testament indicate that God would punish our transgressions up to our third generation?
Well, first of all, I concentrate always on the Second Testament because the First Testament is a testament that was written uh, essentially in a situation of a tribe that was wandering the desert looking for the promised land. And the God of that First Testament is a vengeful God. He turned people into stone and turned people into salt, and he brought the deluge and so on. So it's a different God. The God of Jesus is not like that. It's a forgiving God. So punish transgressions. This was within the context of that particular tribe, and the situation had to be presented that way because the intellectual level and the development level at that time needed strong language. But Jesus brought something completely different. So we don't say that it has to be to the third generation. Jesus never said that. Never the disciples never wrote that. So that is the First Testament.
Okay, quite interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Should we honor and respect our parents even if they have a criminal history?
Absolutely, absolutely. You have, criminal history could mean a multitude of things. Again, you're not justifying whatever they committed, whatever mistakes they made. You're just loving the person. Hating them, refusing to talk to them will not help anybody. Now, as I said, Jesus stopped Mary Magdalene from being killed by lapidation, and he told her, you can go and sin no more. So love them, try to find a certain dialogue with them. You should honor them in the fact that they gave you life, absolutely. And sometimes, just because you're the son of a criminal or the daughter of a criminal, doesn't mean that all your children are going to be criminals and so on and so forth. They may bring great things to the world. There are many examples of that. People who have had if you look, for example, if you're in the Americas, for example, if you grew up in South America, North America, if you go back, looking back on at your lineage, you'll find some people who did some very bad things, believe me. So, no, honor them, respect them as parents or as people. I don't know. Even some criminals can sometimes have good feelings with their families, but it depends on what it is. I saw, for example, a very interesting documentary about the children of Nazi war criminals, and they had a very difficult time dealing with particularly that. And it's a very important question, but as I said, treat them as your neighbor. Treat them as somebody who needs to be loved. If somebody that a parent or a father or a mother is a criminal, that's all I can say about it, really, in this short period
Excellent.
of time.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. That was the last question for this morning. There are some comments here that several folks in our audience left. And one of them is about the beautiful photos of your parents. I agree. I really like the photos that you've shared with us. Thank you for sharing those. Yeah, far away to be perfect as mother when I was a child, but now I am able to see my shadow, trying not to project to others. Very interesting, very insightful Joaquim, thank you so very much for sharing
You're
that
welcome. You're
with
welcome.
us. Would you like to have any additional comments? Before we get that, though, just as a reminder, next weekend, next Saturday, the 2nd, due to the Labor Day long weekend, we will not have our series of talks. We will resume, though, on the 9th. So just to let everybody know. And again, thanks for watching. However, Joaquin, do you have any final words? And
Now, well, yeah, the final words that I like to say is that sometimes, the relationship with our parents will color all our lives. And sometimes we'll color to such an extent that will make it difficult for us to continue and to pass on the love that we need to pass on to our children. So let us try to resolve it as soon as we can. Let us absorb, let us be humble, let us understand that, we need to move forward. We need to grow as spirits, we need to grow as human beings, and we need to pass on to our children an inheritance of love to those around them, as our friends and our companions, an inheritance of love. And love starts at home. Love starts with our parents. Thank you very much for the opportunity today. And it's been a pleasure.
at this moment, would you be so kind to say the final prayer so we can close the lecture?
Yes, I will do
Appreciate
that.
it, sir.
I will do that. I'll be honored to do it. So let us come down to earth, breathe rhythmically, profoundly, trying to find a place of calm, a place of peace within ourselves, a temple where we can feel God's love, a temple where we can feel the vibrations of all the good sentiments that are circulating all over the universe: love, compassion, happiness, hope. Let us then think of all of those that are suffering in this world, all of those that need love and need hope. And let us send to them a little bit of ourselves, a little bit of love, a little bit of hope, a little bit of happiness. To those that are suffering from wars, those that are suffering from hunger, those that are suffering from being abandoned, those that are suffering from violence, those that are in hospital. So let us send all we have in terms of love, compassion. Let us also think of our spiritual brothers, those that are on the other side of the mirror. Let us send them love and hope. Let us send them understanding. Let us also thank our spiritual brothers that helped us today, that have inspired us, that have helped us, have protected us. Let us let us thank Jesus for the love that he left us, for the words that shine and indicate to us the path that we have to follow. And finally, let us raise our thoughts to our Creator, to the Almighty, to thank Him for the privilege of incarnation, but principally for the privilege of eternal spiritual life. And then let us ask Him to bless us and give us His permission to end our work today. Thank you very much.